U.S. President Donald Trump confronted his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa with baseless allegations of a genocide on white farmers in an Oval Office meeting. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the war in Gaza will end with the Palestinian territory being under complete Israeli security control.
EU Foreign Chief Kaja Kallas has called on Israel to investigate after IDF troops fired shots near a delegation of foreign diplomats in the West Bank.
A pro-Kremlin former Ukrainian politician was shot dead in Madrid while dropping his children off to school.
U.S. President Donald Trump hosted his visiting South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House. The meeting, at least for Ramaphosa, was aimed at resetting strained U.S.-South African ties. But Trump used the meeting to confront Ramaphosa over baseless allegations of systematic killing of white farmers.
These are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that.
Ramaphosa, eager to not feature in a repeat of an Oval Office showdown like that of Zelensky's in February, de-escalated as he countered Trump's claims.
I really would like us to talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about it. It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them.
Despite the heated exchange in which Trump played videos on a large TV of an opposition party leader, Julius Malema, leading a controversial chant, he invited Ramaphosa and his team to a private lunch for further discussions. Following the meeting, Ramaphosa downplayed Trump's criticisms, adding that their private meeting was not centered around his concern regarding white farmers. Benjamin Netanyahu says the war on Gaza will continue and end with the Palestinian territory being under complete Israeli security control. In a press conference late on Wednesday, the Israeli leader noted that despite mounting global pressure, the war will only end when Israel achieves its objectives. Netanyahu says that fighting will continue until all hostages are released and with ensuring Gaza's full disarmament and the complete destruction of Hamas. He also stressed that after ensuring these goals are realized, Israel will proceed with U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial post-war plans. Trump had previously proposed that all of Gaza's residents are to be resettled in neighboring countries, followed by the U.S., quote, taking ownership of the enclave. The plan was met with global criticism, with many countries refusing the proposal, stressing that Gaza is Palestinian and should be for the Palestinians. Netanyahu also stated that he is open to a temporary ceasefire to release the remaining hostages, of which Israel believes 20 of the 58 are still alive.
EU Foreign Chief Kaja Kallas has called on Israel to investigate after IDF troops fired what they said were warning shots near a delegation of foreign diplomats in the West Bank.
We definitely call on Israel to investigate this incident and also hold these accountable who are responsible for this, and any threats on diplomats' lives are unacceptable.
The group of regional, European and Western diplomats were standing near the entrance of the Jenin refugee camp when the gunshots started. Jenin has been the site of Israel's widespread crackdown against West Bank militants since earlier this year, which has displaced tens of thousands of residents. The Israeli military said the visit had been approved, but the delegation deviated from the approved route and later apologized for the incident. Several European foreign ministers, including from Italy, France, and Portugal, have summoned the Israeli ambassadors in their countries for an explanation.
Foreign ministers from the European Union and the African Union, AU, on Wednesday vowed to strengthen cooperation for peace, security and economic partnership. The commitment came at the EU-AU Foreign Ministerial meeting in Brussels, which the European Council said took stock of progress made since the last summit in 2022. The foreign affairs ministers of the European Union and the African Union have met for the third time. The last time a meeting like this was held, Russia had not invaded its neighbor, Ukraine, the war in Sudan had not begun, and France, a leading member of the EU, had not lost its influence in the Sahel, where its military was forced out last year. But even more, both the EU and the AU are now confronted with a rapidly changing geopolitical situation.
Si nous prenons les questions de paix et sécurité, nous sommes tous en face des situations de conflit, que ce soit en Afrique, tout comme en Europe. Et donc, il nous faut nécessairement trouver des solutions à ces conflits.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas lamented Russia's growing misinformation campaign in Africa, saying though it was hard to counter, the European Union will not give up the fight.
It is true that we have the fight of narratives everywhere, and this misinformation is one of the tools that Russia is using, especially in Africa. We have to fight the misinformation and foreign malign influence all the time, but it is, of course, increasingly hard.
Foreign ministers from both continents also committed to mediation efforts for ending the war in Sudan. According to the EU, Africa remains a geopolitical priority for the continent at a time of increased geopolitical volatility.
Kto jest przeciw?
The Polish parliament has approved the extension of legislation that temporarily suspends the right to asylum for migrants entering the country through its border with Belarus. Prime Minister Donald Tusk defended the need to extend the law, which he has framed as necessary for national security. He and his government have argued that Moscow and Minsk are deliberately encouraging migrants to cross in an attempt to destabilize Europe.
Łukaszenka i także Putin mobilizują tysiące nielegalnych migrantów przy pomocy przemytników, gromadzą ich przy granicy z Polską, także Finlandią, Litwą, Łotwą. Jest to zarówno złoty biznes dla nich, jak i oczywiście wersja takiej poważnej wersji wojny hybrydowej.
The legislation has been widely criticized by human rights groups, which have warned that it is not compatible with either international or European asylum law. Rights groups estimate that hundreds have died at the Poland-Belarus border since 2021, with thousands said to have been subject to illegal and violent pushbacks by Polish border guards.
Former Ukrainian politician Andriy Portnov was shot dead outside a US school in a wealthy suburb of Madrid, according to Spanish authorities. The 52-year-old once served as a top aide to Ukraine's former pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, who notoriously withdrew from signing an association agreement with the EU, sparking the deadly Euromaidan protests of 2013 and 2014. Portnov was reportedly dropping off his children when gunmen opened fire, hitting him multiple times. Police received a call and rushed to the scene.
Presentaba lesiones incompatibles con la vida, ocasionadas por 3 disparos al menos por arma de fuego, con lo cual solo ha podido confirmar el fallecimiento de esta persona.
During Yanukovych's presidency, Portnov was seen as a pro-Kremlin figure and helped draft laws targeting the Euromaidan protest movement. After Yanukovych fled to Russia, Portnov was sanctioned by Western governments for his actions as part of the former administration. He was later removed from the EU blacklist.
The UK government announced it will be suspending free trade negotiations with Israel and announced new sanctions on settlements in the West Bank. The UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy has criticised Israel's military actions in Gaza as well as violence by Israeli settlers.
I'm announcing that we have suspended negotiations with this Israeli government on a new free trade agreement. We will be reviewing cooperation with them under the 2030 bilateral roadmap. The Netanyahu's government's actions have made this necessary. Yesterday, Minister Smodrik even spoke of Israeli forces cleansing Gaza, destroying what's left of residents, Palestinians, being relocated, he said, to third countries. We must call this what it is. It is extremism.
International pressure has been building on Israel following a nearly 3-month blockade of supplies into Gaza that led to famine warnings. The United States has voiced concerns over the growing hunger crisis, and France and Canada mirrored the United Kingdom and threatened to sanction Israel if it does not halt its offensive and allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. Heavy rainfall across Spain has filled up dam reservoirs across the country, forcing some to release some of their water. El Atazar Dam Reservoir in Madrid has been releasing water in a controlled manner, but now that the dam has reached maximum capacity, it is being forced to release water from an additional spillway. The heavy rainfall is in stark contrast with last year's stubborn drought. Scientists say climate change is making swings between dryness and downpour more acute.